Romania is blessed with the most precious forests in Europe. But with the rise of illegal logging, it's getting dangerous in these vast ancient woodlands. Reportedly, the figures are stark. 6 forest rangers murdered, 2 last autumn alone, and a further 650 attacked with axes, knives and guns.
Logging in Romania is our drug traffic. This is where you have gangs, violence, protection zones, and then killing whistleblowers.
The Carpathians, where 70% of Europe's virgin forest is found, are the scene of a desperate battle between what has been dubbed the timber mafia and those risking their lives to protect this precious environment.
If one tries to mess up with the interest of the forest mafia, you get in trouble and you can even die.
Romania's forests are disappearing fast. Trees, both ancient and young, are harvested at an astonishing rate, some of which is destined for cheap furniture in Western Europe. Over half of all logging here is illegal. The country's roads are full of trucks carrying timber 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We have joined Agent Green, a Romanian NGO who are tracking one such lorry.
So there is no line code for the last 72 hours for the license plate. The transport is illegal. Call 112, which we just did. So the police is coming and they will organize a roadblock.
The truck appears to be carrying substantially more timber than had been declared.
If we look at the volume of the missing wood from Romanian forest yearly, illegally, we are talking about 20 million cubic meters, but the authorities, they only catch 1%. So in Romania, basically, you have 99% chances to steal wood and get away with it.
But what's at stake? Romania's old-growth forests have barely changed since the end of the Ice Age. They're a veritable wonderland that time has passed by.
They are vivid examples of how natural processes shape an ecosystem that it's untouched by humans. Old-growth forests have a spectacular composition. It's this mix of old trees and young trees creates a mosaic of habitats that is a shelter for a very rich biodiversity. Over half of the population of bears lives in Romania. About 30% of the world population, we have lynx, we have wildcats. These forests are of infinite value. The aesthetic value, the inspirational value, the spiritual value of these forests. They are fragile and they need to be protected.
The biggest player in Romania's forestry business is Romsilver, which is state-owned and controls about 48% of Romania's woodlands. It has been plagued with scandals.
There are sweet deals that they do a lot of funny things with the contracts, either when they sell the product, which is wood, or when they buy services. So it's the apparatus problem, and there's corruption inside it.
Theodore Tegan is Romsilver's newly appointed director, having run their operations in Arad County in the east of Romania for the last decade. On paper, he's the most powerful forester in the country. We asked him about claims that there is corruption in Romsilver.
Nu cred că poate să fie așa ceva. Deci, eu vă spun experiența care am la Arad, pe care l-am prins că o tăiat ilegal lemn, l-am dat afară, deci fără nicio problemă. Toleranță zero la furturi.
Romsilver administers logging and hunting, as well as nature conservation. On the face of it, a conflict of interests.
Sunt grupuri de interese care efectiv și rezervații aprobă tăieri de pădure tocmai unde este interzis. Este total ilegal.
Theodora worked for Romsilver for 10 years. She was supposed to monitor impacts on the forests of the Semenic National Park. But the more she drew attention to illegal logging, the worse it became for her.
De fiecare dată se punea presiune să tac din gură, chiar dacă eram un avertizor de integritate asupra tuturor faptelor pe care le consideram ilegale.
Things came to a head when Theodora was ordered to a remote part of the forest by the regional director. But luckily, at the last minute, the driver had a change of heart.
Mi s-a spus că a primit ordin să mă abandoneze singură în pădure. Și asta undeva la vreo 13 kilometri în mijlocul pădurii, fără semnal, fără absolut nimica. Și am spus că nu se poate așa ceva și numai bine când ne-am întors, a venit o echipă de muncitori forestieri. Cu siguranță că acolo mi se întâmpla ceva. Și am zis, nu se poate.
Theodora has no doubt that they meant to kill her.
De fiecare dată cazurile pe care le auzeam de la colegi, îmi aduceam aminte că și eu puteam să fiu chiar de către reprezentanții Romsilva în același mod terminată.
It wouldn't have been the first time that troublesome workers at Romsilver had been dealt with in the forests. This is Leontin Militsa. Militsa has always loved nature. He and his family look after and find homes for stray dogs. A forest ranger for 30 years, Militsa refused to get involved in illegal logging, a stance which he says put him at odds with his superiors at Romsilver, who he says threatened him.
Deci amenințările în mod direct au început în luna octombrie an 2016.
In 2018, Militsa was ambushed in the forest, beaten and left for dead. He showed us the hospital report.
Printre care, deci, mai precis, traumatism craniocerebral grav, traumatism toracic cu fracturi costale, partea dreaptă, traumatism braț drept, traumatism antebraț drept cu fractură cu deplasare și ceea ce n-au specificat ei aici, și un os rupt aici în piept.
Romsilver classified the incident as an industrial accident when, after several weeks in hospital, Militsa went public about the attack, prompting media coverage. He was fired by Romsilver and accused of stealing timber that disappeared whilst he was recovering.
A fost dat afară din Romsilva din cauza că nu și-a, îndeplinit foarte bine atribuțiile de servici.
There are distant foresters who try to defend their forests from the illegal loggers, and some of them were even killed.
In October 2019, forest ranger Liviu Pop was shot dead in the forest with his own gun, the latest victim. Many rangers say Romsilver is part of the problem and claim to witness widespread criminality.
What sort of things have you witnessed?
Adică marcări în plus, circulație fără avize, transport de masă lemnoasă fără documente de însoțire.
Do people in Romsilver, senior people, do they know what's going on?
Da. Pentru că fiecare șef de ocol trebuie să, la rândul lui, trebuie să sponsorizeze anumite activități electorale. Deci campanii și etică.
So a politician makes the appointment in order to get some money back from the forest.
Exact.
Where does all this illegal timber go?
Adică la agenții economici, care la rândul lor o procesează și o vinde, gen Schweighofer.
And do Schweighofer know what's going on?
Cred că, mai mult ca sigur că se știe.
Holz Industry Schweighofer changed its name to HS Timber after a covert recording emerged in which they admitted to not only accepting but paying a bonus for illegal timber. HS Timber declined to be interviewed. In a statement, the company said it now had an action plan for a sustainable and secure wood supply chain that goes far beyond all legal requirements. and that it maintains an open and transparent dialogue with the civil society or its representatives. The company added that it denied allegations that bring our company in connection with illegalities. The company has wood mills nationwide, consuming Romania's forests at an astonishing speed. In the county of Cluj, we joined Horia, one of a band of volunteer foresters who agreed to take us to a site formerly known as Bear Valley, where we could see for ourselves the impact of HS timber.
After more than 3 years of evaluating the damage, we reached the number of 4,000 big trucks full with timber that went out from here illegally. The big company that bought all the timber from here, Schweighofer Industry, knew exactly what happened, and they didn't do anything. They just made a lot of profit.
In its statement, HS Timber contested this claim. It said there was no clear cut at all. HS Timber Group, in compliance with all laws, acquired some volumes of timber from this storm-affected valley. Either way, the country is being stripped clean of its precious forests, and yet the Secretary of State, a former senior official at Romsilver, is strangely upbeat.
Noi am luat măsuri și pe partea reducerii infracționalității, precum și pe un management durabil, astfel încât, la această dată, putem spune că cu tărie, că suntem pe un drum frumos, iar ultimul câștigător este, și cel mai important, pădurea.
But still the forests are disappearing, and there has been public outrage at government complacency. Multiple examples of wrongdoing have been passed to the authorities, but any attempt to confront illegal logging seemed doomed to end in failure, even in the face of irrefutable evidence. In 2018, agents from Romania's Directorate for Investigating Organised Crime raided HS Timber's offices.
The prosecutors officially stated that they are investigating at least 4 managers of the Schweighofer company being involved in transactions of illegal woods and also forged auctions with Romsilver.
However, inexplicably, the case was kicked into the long grass and nothing has been heard about it since.
Despite the public outrage of the Romanian authorities, in theory, in practical, basically nothing happens.
The company enjoyed a complete monopoly on Romania's softwood until a strict forest code was introduced by a tough new forest minister in 2015.
Evident că era un monopol clar. Și atunci am introdus un articol în codul silvic cât nicio firmă sau grup de firme să nu poată beneficia de mai mult de 30% din volumul de masă lemnoasă exploatat anual, și au făcut multă gălăgie. Au ajuns până la primul ministru, în care acuzau că dacă intră în vigoare măsurile pe care eu vreau să le iau, ei vor pierde circa 150 de milioane de euro pe an.
The minister also brought in a raft of measures in an attempt to close down the trade in illicit timber, which she says incurred the wrath of the forest mafia.
Au încercat să mă discrediteze politic, încât să fiu schimbată de propriul meu partid din funcție, și în momentul în care au văzut că nu merge nici una, nici cealaltă, au recurs la eliminarea mea fizică.
The minister resigned citing ill health. Only later did she reveal that she had been poisoned with near fatal doses of mercury.
Cheta e în derulare. E clar că din domeniul pădurilor, deci a tăierilor ilegale, adică mafia. Știam că mă urăsc, știam că încearcă să mă discrediteze, dar nu m-am așteptat nicio secundă că vor încerca să mă și omoare.
But the minister's efforts had ramifications right across the timber industry. And as for HS Timber, they were having to look further afield, and a new mill was opened in the far north of the country.
There's a mill which is very close to the border with Ukraine, which is one of the biggest wood mills anywhere in Europe. It's vast. You can see it from space. This thing has its own rail spur going into Ukraine in order to bring these vast trains. So you have these kilometre-long trains loaded with logs and timber coming into this factory on a regular basis.
HS Timber, they're simply too big. They're right now supplying 50% of their wood in Romania and the other 50% elsewhere, including other countries, other Carpathians. So for us as biologists and specialists in ecology, this doesn't make a big difference because we look at the Carpathians not from the country point of view, but from the ecosystem point of view. It's the same ecosystem.
But it's hard to imagine this view holding sway in the boardrooms of foreign multinationals, companies like Kronospan, another Austrian timber conglomerate whose factory in Sebeș churns out over 1 million cubic meters of chipboard every year. Nearby forests, including the Natura 2000 site of Tenutul Padranilor, are being illegally logged to service Kronospan's enormous processing plant. Natura 2000 is a network of protected areas covering Europe's most valuable and threatened species and habitats. This footage, shot by activists inside the protected site, shows where trees were cut and new roads built to get the logs out. It's a potential death knell for the site. We filmed these two trucks leaving Tenutul Padranilor carrying illegal timber. First, the trucks go to a timber yard.
We have been tracing this wood from that protected area to this log yard, and from this log yard the wood is being unloaded from trucks, loaded onto other trucks. Basically this log yard is functioning as a laundry for illegal wood and is being sent to Kronospan in Sebeș to be sold to furniture companies, including IKEA.
We asked Kronospan about these claims, but the company didn't respond to our request for an interview or a statement. For its part, IKEA, one of the world's leading furniture retailers, insists it will cut off any supplier found to have breached its stringent rules on sustainability. But that is easier said than done.
I can only say that in IKEA we are using about 17 million cubic meters a year. That's quite a big amount of wood, and it of course puts a lot of responsibility to IKEA to verify that this wood is sourced responsibly. But it would be impossible to say that there is no any single cubic meter which would enter our supply chain that could not have a wrong origin.
Basically, IKEA is the biggest consumer of wood on the planet. It consumes a tree every second, we worked out. And it's consuming 2 million more trees every year than it did the year before because it's growing so fast. And so if you're going to save the world's forests from the consumption for timber and wood products, you have to look at the biggest consumer of this wood on the planet, and that's IKEA. And IKEA is very dependent on Eastern Europe, Romania, Russia, Ukraine, and these are countries with big problems with corruption and illegality.
Interestingly, the biggest private forest owner in Romania is Inca Investment, which falls within the IKEA brand group of companies.
Inca Forest in Romania are working very hard to implement what we believe is needed to secure legal and beyond legal requirements.
It is to one of these Inca forests that Thomas White's MEP, joint leader of the European Greens, has come on a fact-finding mission, concerned not about illegality, but environmental damage. Pentalou is another Natura 2000 site. As we approached the Inca property, logs littered the roadside.
The main problem I see in that forest is actually that kind of road. You see massive erosion down there. There is like dozens of cubic meters of earth, and it has been spilled into the river, and that river is on the high protection standard down there. And if you spill all that into the river, you're affecting directly the ecosystem in the river, and that's not how we do it in Natura 2000 areas.
This property is full of old-growth forest, the key habitat which supports an abundance of flora and fauna. And yet, according to the Forest Action Plan, it is these very trees which are to be logged out as a matter of urgency.
The point is also to leave some old trees for the seeds, actually, for spreading of the seeds. And if we look here, the big trees are completely missing in here.
It's not too late to save Pentaloo. The plan is to extract the trees here until 2026, so there is still time. But next day, Tom joins activists on a spur of Romania's highest mountain, Moldovanu, to see what Pentaloo might look like when the loggers have finished. It's a steep climb through another Natura 2000 site. Through the mist, glimpses of ancient tree stumps suggest what must have been an extraordinary landscape.
What happened here is that there was a complete clear cut done on the whole mountain ridge. It makes me feel very sorry because forests offer a huge opportunity to harvest wood, support biodiversity. The forest is serving us with drinking water, they're serving us with fresh air. They're crucial for our society and crucial for our battle against the climate crisis.
Only from the air can the true scale of the devastation be fully understood. However, as awful as these scenes of clear-cutting are, they tell only part of the story. This is Lake Nantashi, which just a few years ago was a famous spa resort. But with climate change, Romania's deforestation has had a direct impact here. In the past, during the dry season, trees provided much-needed moisture to the air, but without tree cover, the water has evaporated from the lake with tragic consequences.
Because the land is not covered by trees, the air sucks that humidity, take it off from the wetlands, from the lakes. With all the species, the fish, all the microclimate disappear in just 3 or 4 years. And if we don't act very fast, it's a disaster that we can't imagine before.
But there is still much in Romania that can be saved, and it would be wrong to say that there is no hope. Gabriel Pound, the founder of Agent Green, has agreed to take us to the single most important forest in Romania. He is driving to a remote spot in the Domagled National Park, where a campaign in 2019 brought world attention to illegal logging.
This national park is home of almost all existing species of flora and fauna in Europe. It's paradise. I would say it's the capital of biodiversity in the European Union.
But in the park, we find signs of fresh logging.
Iată ce dezastru. I'm disgusted and I'm angry. The government is disrespecting its own legislation and the highest court decision. That in this national park, in this place where we are, logging should be completely stopped.
And sure enough, as we leave, we pass a logging truck coming to pick up the illegal timber. For those who wish to save Romania's forests and their endangered inhabitants, there is no rest in their fight against ineffectual governments, powerful multinationals, and the timber mafia.